Hello, I'm Dr. Randall Bell, and we're here at Core IQ. I'm with Jill Pillsbury, and we're here to talk about job interviews. This is a big topic because it can make it or break it for being employed or unemployed. You know what I mean?
It's an important topic. It can be really nerve-wracking and stressful for everyone.
Yeah, and even on our side of the table, we're interviewing people.
Everyone.
Yeah. So the neat thing is we did a lot of research on this topic, and we kind of broke it down into three things. It makes sense: before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview. And a lot of people just think of the interview itself, but breaking it apart like this, you're gonna be really dialed in and you're gonna have a competitive advantage if you really pay attention to these principles, don't you think?
I do. I mean, I think it's all about, again, keeping the stress and nerves under control, making a game plan so you have confidence from beginning to end of the interview process.
Yeah. So let's start before the interview, because there's a lot of work to do before the interview even happens. And the first thing is your resume. Now, we have an entirely different episode on building a resume, but having that resume and maybe reviewing your own resume before the interview, because some people kind of forget some of their own accomplishments when they show up. Reviewing that kind of gets you up to speed and also allows you to say, hey, I forgot to say that. I need to mention that in the interview.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think anybody that does anything successfully, they need to prepare, whether you're an athlete or out there in the job market, right? I also think, Randy, it's important to mention that these simple interview skills can be used whether you're a teenager looking for a summer job or you're someone looking for a part-time job, or you're right out of school starting your first career, or you're an executive switching career paths. So bear in mind that we've broken this down before, during, and after so that it's a usable skill for everyone.
Okay. Now, another thing is to check out the company and the position so you're kind of up to speed. What is this company all about and what's this position all about? So you don't show up clueless. You want to be dialed in, and that comes across as being pretty impressive if you have that information in your head.
Definitely, and that goes along with updating your resume, right? You want to make sure that your resume is appropriate for the job that you're interviewing for at that time. I think definitely getting your resume updated and researching the company that you're going in to interview so you can ask intelligent questions is critical.
Thinking about the common interview questions, I mean, there's a number of common questions and you're pretty sure are going to be asked. And maybe role playing with somebody that you can kind of brush up on that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Find a friend, a mentor, go out into your community and talk out loud, talk through the questions, ask questions. I think that's really helpful.
And the last thing is, you're going to be asked questions during your interview, but what comes across really well is if you're asking questions during the interview yourself. Like, I did some research on your company and I had a couple questions, because those questions can come across as, wow, they're really their lights are turned on, they're involved, they're not just going through the motions here. I think that's a big plus. So do your research and ask some questions. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, for sure. What are the duties? What are, even they can be basic questions as far as salary. It could be industry type questions.
So let's switch on over to during the interview. This is where it gets this is the spotlight. This is when you're on stage.
I mean, this is a huge opportunity. You need to pat yourself on the back. You've made it to the interview stage. Your resume has been reviewed and now they're calling in and you're going from paper to person. Yeah. So now is your chance in the during to, within the first 5 to 10 minutes, put your best foot forward.
Yeah, well, and the first step is to arrive on time. Now, I tell my kids, I'd rather that you show up an hour early than a minute late.
Yes.
And I think the right timing is to show up like 5 minutes early. Don't be late.
No, definitely don't be late. I would even say 10 minutes early. And I think you set your arrival time to 5 to 10 minutes early. And that takes into account traffic, a delayed bus, a delayed subway, parking. I mean, I think that is a great forgotten factor. If you're interviewing in a big corporate office building, it can take you 15 minutes to park and get through the parking structure.
Yeah, just to navigate. So give yourself plenty of time and get there on time. Also dress appropriately. We had an interview here where the gentleman showed up in a suit with a tie, we don't wear a lot of suits and ties here unless we're going into court or into meetings.
Right.
But that was impressive.
Yeah, I think it's safe to overdress than underdress.
Yeah.
You know, definitely you want to look clean and well put together. You can research when you're doing your research on the company. You should look, what's the dress code at this company? And again, nothing trendy, nothing too formal or too casual, but kind of towing the line and upping your game is probably a safe bet.
Yeah, and the next one is this common kind of stuff. Look people in the eye and make eye contact and smile and be personable. Any comments about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't, you're putting a lot of pressure and burden on the interviewer to carry the conversation, and that's really not going to excite them too much.
Yeah, and be aware of your nervous habits. I mean, one of the habits I have is I cover my mouth, and that's a bad habit because, you know, I don't know, but someone pointed that out once, so I'm aware of it. But, you know, be aware of your nervous habits, whether it's tapping a pencil or jiggling your foot or, you know, whatever it is, and just kind of turn the dial down on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that goes back to practice and prepare.
And then the next point is pay attention to the interviewer. I mean, pay attention to them. I was interviewing a young lady once for a job, and she just kept talking, you know, saying over and over, I need a job. I just need to make a lot of money. I just need a job. And it's like, really? I mean, that of course you want a job. That's why you're here. And of course it pays money. But let's talk about what we can get accomplished here. That was kind of weird. She was paying no attention to me.
Right. I mean, I would add on that note also that if you find yourself, pay attention to the question that the interviewer is asking, obviously. But if you do find yourself getting off on a tangent, I think it's totally acceptable and really sort of human and personal to stop yourself and say, wow, I kind of got off track there. What you asked me was why I'm interested in this field, and just circle back. But I think it's okay if you feel yourself getting off track to just stop, acknowledge it, and get back on track.
And listen to the questions and answer the questions. Don't answer another question you think they really should have asked. Just make sure you answer that question. And that kind of leads us to our last point. You be yourself. I mean, everybody has a personality. Everybody has, you know, what makes them unique. There's 7.5 billion people. We all have a unique thumbprint. So don't try and be a robot or anything. Be yourself. And hopefully if there's a connection there, it's a two-way street. I mean, you're not only looking for a job, they're looking for someone that matches their corporate culture. You want to make sure you're in a place where your needs are met as well. It's a two-way street. And don't be phony. It comes across bad. And I think turns the dial down on your chances of getting the job.
Yeah, I think for sure. And this is a job you have to live with too. So if you're not right for the job and you're trying to be something that you're not, that doesn't really serve anybody well in the end.
Be authentic. All right. So what other things can you do during the interview?
So one of the things I might add, Randy, is that you want to be careful not to ever badmouth your prior employer.
Oh, yeah.
That's just not good form.
No, sends a bad vibe.
Yeah.
We've kind of covered before the interview and then during the interview, but a lot of people are surprised to know that there's some things you can do after the interview that are kind of the right way to go. The first thing is to send a thank you card.
Really important. And again, this applies whether you're a CEO, sending a thank you card and a follow-up note is not below you, or you're in high school trying to get a job at the local restaurant for the summer.
Follow up with a thank you, and also follow up and say, hey, has this job been fulfilled? I wouldn't follow up the next day. I might wait a few days, but that's kind of a thing, because it lets people know that, hey, you really are interested in the job, and maybe they had their eye on someone else. In fact, I hired someone once, and I actually hired someone else first, and she didn't work out. She just wasn't cutting it. And the other young lady who applied for this position called me back to follow up, and I ended up hiring her because, and she turned out to be great.
Yeah.
In fact, she worked for years, and now she's a big attorney in Washington, D.C. and doing all kinds of great things.
Yeah.
But it was all because she followed up after the interview.
Yeah, you never know what can happen. You never know who will cross your path another year in a different business interview. So you want to keep all your doors open.
And then another thing is to maintain relationships, because these are people in your industry and their jobs move. Maybe they didn't hire you for that job, but maybe in their next job, they're going to be thinking of you. And so sometimes you even can strike up a friendship or some kind of relationship where you get more and more plugged into your industry, and those relationships are gold. For
sure. And, you know, where you may not have gotten the position at the job you specifically interviewed for, if the person liked you, they may know of someone else that's hiring that you might be a good fit for. So keeping that network alive and developing your own network is really important.
And now sometimes the answer is no. I mean, a lot of times the answer is no. And that is not the end of the world. I mean, you can handle that in a number of ways, but don't take it personally. We have an episode about Q-tip. Don't quit taking it personally is what Q-tip acronym means. People are looking for different skills and that kind of thing, and maybe there's not a match. That doesn't mean it's a bad company or a bad person or you did a bad job, but there may be opportunities in the future. Maintain those relationships and don't take it personally.
No, and it can take an average person anywhere up to 5 or 6 months sometimes to find a job. You know, that's after going on interview after interview after interview. So don't get discouraged. You are pretty typical if you don't get the first job you go in and interview for. It can take multiple interviews.
And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that interviewed for jobs. They're all bummed out because they didn't get the job. And then later they go, that was a blessing in disguise because I now found a job that's just like perfect for me. And I'm glad I didn't get those other jobs. So, you know, it just takes time to get that right fit.
And I do think, though, to be proactive in that, you know, space, if you feel like, wow, you know, I've been on 50 interviews and none of these jobs are panning out, that might be a good time to step back and reassess how you're approaching the process from before, during, and after.
But I can tell you this, if you look at this whole situation before, during, and after, your chances go way up because I guarantee your competitors are not doing all this. They're doing, you know, hit and miss with this. This is comprehensive. Anytime we do things fully, completely, comprehensively, our chances are enhanced. All right. So that's how you hit a job interview. Make sure that you like, share all that stuff with Core IQ. Make sure you talk about it with your friends because we're trying to elevate the Core IQ of the entire world. We can't do it without people talking about it and sharing it. And we'll see you next time.